Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success, and in the current climate, how to maximize safety while providing people with fresh food. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a farmer or food producer selling at farmers markets, this is the podcast for you. On today's episode of Tent Talk, our very own Kat Fields-White talks with Erin Tormey of Coastside Farmers Markets about market sponsorship and how community support can help farmers markets weather our current storms. Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers, and I've spent years as an on-site farmers market manager and am the education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, a very active farmers market manager these days, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of the Farmers Market Pros community on Facebook.
Juggling so many balls. Well, Kat, tell us a little bit more about the conversation we are about to hear.
I will. Erin Tormey is the director of Coastside Farmers Markets. She operates seasonal farmers markets in Half Moon Bay and Pacifica on the Northern California coast. She's also a farmer at Farm Fatales, catchy name, you know I love that name, raising heritage chickens and ducks on Irish Ridge in Half Moon Bay. This conversation was recorded at the California Small Farm Conference, where both Erin and I were leading workshop sessions. That was the very end of February. We arrived in San Luis Obispo on the last Thursday in February, attended a great market there, and things still felt sort of normal. We enjoyed the conference. By the time we left on Sunday, my rental car company had a no-touch drop-off for my keys at the airport, and TSA was spraying hand sanitizer like it was nobody's business. Things were about to change. And in the next week to 10 days, COVID-19 protocols saw stay-at-home orders, markets closing, and we were pretty much just all obsessed with how to deal with that. It didn't really make sense at that point to run the marketing conversation that Erin and I had had. So in this pre-coronavirus conversation, Erin and I don't discuss COVID-19 issues because it hadn't really happened yet. And because we were together in February, we also don't discuss newly visible demands for racial equality. Though Erin and I know each other pretty well. We serve on some boards and things together. And as a couple of really old hippies, she and I have agreed that our arms are tired of having carried the same signs for almost 50 years. We're both still marching, but our voices are hoarse. We're glad the young people are in it with us now. Anyway, none of that's going to come up in what you're about to hear because, again, this was recorded the end of February. What we do discuss is Erin's approach to sponsorship and marketing partnerships, something that she's shared with us and our audience at Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, on a couple of past occasions in previous years. With many markets facing financial challenges while operating under COVID-19 protocols and the aftermath of those, we thought it was time to get back to that conversation. So join Erin and I in San Luis Obispo at the California Small Farm Conference as we have lunch and chat about sponsorships.
We have the market and we have the product and we have it all kind of in a relatively close space.
Yeah.
So.
And does that apply to both of your markets in San Mateo County or more the Half Moon Bay Saturday morning?
I would say that the Half Moon Bay Saturday morning market is sort of gets the trifecta going on. You know, lots of farmers are able to come to that market, bring in their produce from less than 20 miles away. We have two farmers that are less than a mile away from where the square is, where we
Central
have our
Coast is so rich.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of amazing, and so they love it because they get to actually participate in their own community, which I think is something that is really hard on small farmers from more outlying areas.
Absolutely.
You know, is that they don't see their neighbors and their friends sometimes only on market days in a place that's 3 hours away from home.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
so many people have to travel. So many farmers have to travel to get to the area where the shoppers are.
It's true.
So it's wonderful to have both.
It's true. So it is wonderful, and I absolutely recognize that. And that I want to make sure it's clear that colors the rest of this conversation. I get it that what we're able to do in Half Moon Bay may or may not be able to translate across other markets and other areas. But
still,
I really
think the basics of what you
do
do in terms of engaging the community and getting community
Right.
support financially, I think variations on that theme can be had in almost any area.
Exactly. And it's because, like you said, it is different in Pacifica. That's more of a working man's community. It's kind of a bedroom community.
What day is that market?
That one's on Wednesday afternoons
Okay.
from 2:30 to 6:30. And we spent about a year and a half trying to figure out where best to place a market and at what time and date. You know, everybody wants that market to be on the weekend too. I have
Sure.
to go next week and talk to their economic development director for the third time in 6 years, because that person changes all the time, and
Of
they always
course.
want to see the market
See on
move
the
somewhere else
weekend.
on a weekend. And
Are
not
you in
really
a business area? Because a lot of times the local businesses appreciate a midweek market because it brings people to their businesses on a slower time.
correct. Exactly and absolutely.
Yeah. But everybody's got their own agenda.
Yeah, everybody does. And the thing about farmers markets is that the reality of it is that they are not convenient for everyone. There's never going to be a day, time, and place that's going to work for everybody.
Right.
The Starbucks model of having one in every corner every day of the week or 24-hour markets is not a possibility.
Right.
It just isn't. It's not an economic possibility. It's not feasible at all. And if you want to have your farmers actually live past their 30s,
Right. They're
they
already
need
working
to-
hard.
They need to rest. They need to be on their farms.
Right.
They need to be with their families. They expecting us all to just, put on our ginghams and charming outfits to be your entertainment 24/7 is, I'm not for that.
And when you say we, I mean, that's one of the unique things about you as a market manager. Not unique, but not always typical, is that you're not only a manager, but you're also a farmer, which gives you a terrific perspective
Yeah.
on what keeps farmers in farmers markets and what makes sense for the farmers as well as the shoppers.
Yeah. Well, it's always top of mind for me. And I didn't intend to manage this market forever. I just couldn't find anybody else to do it.
Right.
There were 5 or 6 of us that were all roughly, late 30s, just trying to get our farms off the ground in a community that did not have a tradition of direct marketing within their own community. We had a tradition of export, like pretty much everybody that grew the artichokes and Brussels sprouts and pumpkins and the more iconic crops that they associate with that growing climate, shipped them out to Canada. 1 or 2 farmers when I first started, 2 that I can think of that are like the heritage farmers from our area, did farmers markets, and only the mighty Ferry Plaza Market in San Francisco. But I wasn't growing enough, and it wasn't interesting enough, and I wasn't known, and I didn't have one of the old Italian farmers in the place. That our community is mostly lots of Italian and Portuguese farmers, and their whole thing with me, they used to tease me all the time, is that if the vowels were on the end of my
Right.
family name instead of at the beginning, if I was a Danello instead of an O'Donnell, I wouldn't be having these problems.
Right. I manage a market in Little Italy, and I'm on that board, and they keep saying Cat Whitini. You're fine.
but yeah, no, and we just, here we were. It was Dee Harley from Harley Farms, who's now quite well known around the world, keeps winning prizes on her cheese in France. And
lovely.
was one of the early folks. She and I were both invited to the first Slow Food convening for the work that we were doing. Guy named Jason. There's Larry Jacobs Farm,
Right.
and Jim Cochran from Swanton Berries. Like, we all started at the same time. They were a couple years, a good 10 years in it before I were, but Jim Cochran and Larry Jacobs were our mentors.
Wow.
And they're like, well, what can we do about this? Because
Right.
they could see that there was a desire in the Half Moon Bay area to create the kind of community that a farmer's market is like magical
Sure.
at creating. And there isn't any other thing like it that does that, as far
Right.
as I have noticed. It just sort of brings all these different threads from this social stratosphere where we are, and ties them all up into such a, brings
Such a
them
nice
into this
package.
beautiful web. And I think
And
that
then
a lot of-
hopefully
yeah.
also promotes
Right.
farming, since
Right.
since you can afford to farm
Yeah.
better if you're getting the retail price of the
And when you
produce.
know the person, like if you can see that here's this person in your community that you like, that is, has these eggs, but maybe they're a little more expensive than you might get in the store, but you see her farm on your way back and forth from work, and you see them
Well
out
worth
there
it.
working, and you feel like it's an investment, and not just that in your family and them having better food, but you being, participating in community and in a society that's gotten increasingly more fractured and fragmented and sort of dissipated. I think that part is really valuable to people.
I think so too. There was a book, a couple decades ago, I think, called High Tech, High Touch. And I think we're experiencing some of that as things get more and more remote and you can have certain things delivered, and a lot of people are working remote and not even seeing people in a work environment, that weekly gathering or twice a week gathering of your neighbors and friends is hugely important to mental health as well as to keeping physical health good and keeping farmers farming.
And civic engagement and knowing what's going on in the community where you live and where your kids are growing up and where you're trying to get a business off the ground.
Yeah.
You know, it's
so many advantages.
It's all that. There's nothing like being in personal contact with people.
Exactly.
There's no replacement for it. There's no amount of Instagramming that's going to...
That's really going to
get
form
those
that
connections happen.
face-to-face connection.
So,
Well, and you realize, as a farmer and a farmer's market manager, that to do it well and make sure that the people who are managing the markets and organizing the markets get paid.
Yeah.
And and that there's money to do promotions so that you get the maximum number of shoppers aware so that they can come support the farmers and the food makers and the vendors. It takes money.
Yes.
And so you've been really good at not making your markets rely just on farmer and vendor space rent for that money, but getting people engaged, not just because it's a feel-good donation, but because you can actually offer a good return on investment when they align with the farmer's market as a marketing and advertising effort. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
That's what you've told me, right? So... I think that's really brilliant.
Yeah.
So many markets seem to look to sponsors as somebody that's going to donate to the market because it's a feel-good thing. Mm-hmm. You approach it a different way.
And it's true. And you got to have some feel-good in there.
Sure.
Because, you only go around once, and that's definitely a part of it. But I look at the way that we've set up our program is not donations. We're not asking for donations. We make sure that we are mission aligned with whoever it is that we're going to be talking to. And that there's a reciprocal benefit for them being aligned with our markets and investing in it. And that there needs to be a return on that investment. So that means we're not just getting the money and doing what we want with it. We also make a pact with our sponsors that will co-promote them. And show the community that of our support. And show our community of support who the broader community is that's holding that's helping our boat float.
Right.
And so we do that in a number of different ways, and some are quite soft, like the appearance out to the public is quite soft. In others, it's more robust, and that all depends on the level of investment that a sponsor might consider making. And so we have a number of really strong public-facing opportunities. I think you and I have talked a lot about the way we deal with music at our markets and getting that paid for. I have a background in music. I'm a musician myself.
That explains your strong feelings about paying musicians.
I've never been a professional musician, but I have been associated with them for many, many years, and I feel really strongly about artists and musicians that and farmers and people who make food that are always getting asked to donate their everything all the time. And so we make a commitment to contract with and hire and pay our musicians. We focus primarily on singer-songwriters who have their own licensing agreements. That still doesn't release you from some of the problems or the aspects, I suppose I should say, of ASCAP and BMI and those kinds of fees. So in our case, we aligned with a restaurant who actually, in our case, that restaurant, we've had a long relationship with them. Our very first market we did in their parking lot.
Oh, great.
Years ago. And when we moved, they wanted to keep their relationship with us because we reflected well on them. And that's a whole other conversation, about how you build a market that really, that really does
reflects nicely on your supporters.
On your community.
Absolutely.
That is a mirror of what your community is. And we have a lot of musicians and a lot of talented people in our community, and along with the bazillionaires and the tech giants and everybody with their own private Idahos out there. But being able to align with a restaurant that also presented live music. And, we put a really big banner with their big logo behind the stage every time we set it up. It's a We provide power. There's work that we do. There's a
Right.
value that we provide because it's there. It's a stage. It's our staff's job to get that set up. It's my organization's job to maintain that equipment, to like have it there. And then we pay them. It's not a huge amount. It's a
Right.
nice little stipend, though, so that, people at least get their gas paid for.
Right, but the
And-
restaurant's paying you
But the
to have their
restaurant,
banner
yeah.
up there. And,
Right.
And do they then also, their ASCAP agreement covers your musician, since it's sort of their musician at that point?
In this case, it does.
Right.
I always like to be careful about this because
Sure.
it's not going to work with everybody. But this is a particular restaurant that also has a food truck, and they have a catering arm, and their ASCAP fees cover their remote
Great. Yeah,
stuff.
brilliant.
Because if they're having their food truck out there on the beach and they're playing the Beach Boys or whatever, they're fine. And so they do not do, because they have a really busy restaurant, so they don't do any like food truck events or things like that on Saturdays. But they have a guy who comes down he doesn't do it every time, but they're not that far away from us, and they just park that truck
That's great.
right out in front of the place, and it looks like they're there.
Yeah,
If
absolutely. And it
anybody
gives them
ever
a
showed
nice
up,
promotion.
it's like, yeah. So they kind of get to be seen. We park them in a place that is looks like it would be excellent customer parking, but it's actually not. It's right in front of where the dumpsters and all that
Oh,
stuff are, which
perfect.
are just stuck right in the middle
So,
of our everything.
Kill two birds with one
Yeah,
stone. Hide
so
those
we don't have to
dumpsters.
look at the ugly dumpsters that we have. This big old truck from the Chowder House there. We don't care if every now and again they come if they've got a soft Saturday, like especially when we start moving into November and December as things are really winding down and their business is slowing up. Every now and again they're like, "Do you mind if we come out and do lobster rolls?" I'm like, "Hell no, do
And
what
who
you
doesn't
want."
want a nice hot cup of chowder when it's getting cooler,
Who doesn't?
right?
No. So in our situation, that worked out really well. But they still invest several $1,000s a year in our markets for each of the locations. Then that's somewhere in the area of about $75 per market day. That
Right.
is cash that we have to, and sometimes that's enough. A lot of times we generally speaking just have individual singer-songwriters that do their thing, and they get their $75. They're happy as all get out, because they also get tipped lavishly,
Right.
because we have a good sound system,
Right.
and they're really good at what they do, and they have CDs and they can sell them, they can do whatever they want, but we always know that we're going to have music that's good, that doesn't sound like crap. They're not going to rock the place out and
Sure.
make people mad.
Sure, more ambient
They're not
music
going to
is-
show
yes.
up drunk or hungover, because
Right.
it's
It's a
it's a
job.
professional job. It's a
Right.
gig they're getting paid for. And it also, having a solid music program has helped us defray some of the other problems that you sometimes get with buskers. And in our case, where we live, there's lots of young beachy drumming circle sorts that like to show up on Saturdays and
Not necessarily a calm kind of music for the
no,
shoppers.
I mean, drums were man. That's jungle drums. Those are things in my culture, man. When the drums start going, it is time to be scared and run and hide. I'm part Modoc. You gather your wits, you take down your teepee, and you get out. And so, like,
Different environment altogether.
for a lot of
Yeah.
people, when drums
Different
start
signal.
going, it's jarring, it's loud, it makes it hard for people to sell their products.
So the
explain what
music
they're
that
doing.
you curate is
So-
a better bet.
And curate is a word,
Right.
and having the resources to do that, and the time to do it carefully, and the time to make sure that you have your agreements back and forth, and
Right.
so having support in making that happen, so it basically becomes a cost neutral
Right.
activity.
And that
is-
applies to a lot of the things you do. So you have a community table, and you have market match that exceeds what you can fund from a grant in terms of actual expenses. And it sounds like you're doing a whole bunch of different levels of sponsorship / marketing partnerships
Right.
with people.
Yeah, we have a whole kind of array, a nice little menu that starts with very minimal investment to be on our poster. We don't do anybody's logo anymore, just the name of their business that goes all the way around. That we use it as a frame
Right.
for the poster, which has been really fun
Right.
to be able to do. There's about 16 spots around the edge,
Right.
and each of them, depending on the community that they are, each of those sponsors is kicking in either $150 a season or $250 a season, and it's just a few $1,000s every year that basically pay for all of our printing costs and publishing things and keeping. We have a graphic designer that we keep on retainer. We just,
Who does a great job, by the way. I love your
Thank
posters.
You. Yeah, we have fun. He's wonderful. But it's not a lot. It's about anywhere, depending on the year and what we need. It's never less than $1,500 a year. Sometimes it's been up to $2,000 during years when we've had to I don't know, like when we had to develop all our market money for
Right.
our stuff, or
Sure.
when we've had special programs that are going on, or when we've, certain kinds of things. But it's always sort of somewhere in there. So the poster children, we call them the poster child level, and of where we are. And I have a kind of a sassy way of talking sometimes, and the levels that I have may or may not work, and the language that I wrap around it is very personal.
But the
every
idea of
community-
having various levels
Yeah.
of marketing partnerships
Yeah.
is smart.
Yeah.
Just about anybody, I think, can adapt that.
Yeah, I think so too. And so, like in our case, we do adapt it from community to community. We used to just do one poster for all the communities. Now they're separate. So that's doubled our.
So you can have 32 poster
So
children.
now we have enough to have 32 poster children, and it's exactly, and everybody, like all of our sponsors, regardless of what level that they invest, everybody ends up on that poster somewhere. But how much you invest depends on where on that poster you appear. So,
And then you can give them other kind of benefits. And you
Oh, yeah.
you typically are not taking your sponsors and putting them in a booth at the market, right? But you do
Not-
website benefits and
Right.
have their logo on your website with a link and
Correct.
some printing
Right.
and some signs at the info booth and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you're not typically giving them a booth space, right? For
only
most levels?
for most levels, no. That's only when you're really throwing in the bucks. There needs to be a comma in the. There needs to be a
Right.
well punctuated number.
Right, because otherwise
Before-
you could end up really with your market being taken
Right.
over by commercial kind of businesses that I don't think the shoppers react to all that
No,
well.
they don't like it.
that influence.
Nobody likes it, and it's really bad for your organization. I think I always say that you have to be careful that co-branding can really slide into co-opting
Right.
really quickly.
Right.
So I don't do a lot of that. But the sponsors that we have, that part of our defense mechanism against that is that we only solicit or accept sponsors that are very clearly mission aligned with us. Right.
I think that's really important
So-
to curate the sponsors the
Yeah.
same way you do your
Yeah.
vendors and farmers
Exactly.
and music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said that really nicely. Oh my- But yes, we are careful. So we don't, you and I were talking a little bit earlier about some of the obstacles you can run into with when you consider certain sorts of
Sure.
sponsorships, right? So we're very careful about not. We've declined every year. I don't have anything personally against
Right,
Safeway,
right.
but I don't want them having their brand at my farmer's
Well, it's
market.
just a really
Yeah.
different tone than direct
It's-
marketing. So
yeah,
it
it's
feels
different. Right. And
unaligned.
any more than I need the guy around the corner whose wife loves coming to the market, but he has an auto shop.
Yeah,
He
it
would
just-
love to, but it doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing.
Right.
Right. And so there have been a number over the years that I've declined, and it really helps if you can, I work with the local Ag Lands Trust. But
perfect.
I don't
Yeah.
necessarily work as a sponsor, say, with Surfrider.
Right.
Like Surfrider, you could make the connection if you agonized over it,
Sure.
because obviously ocean health and human health has something to do with each other. Where I would, and I have had sponsorships come in, like from the Sustainable Fisheries Organization.
Oh, nice.
Right, that's a much more direct.
In terms
connection.
of retail,
So-
we've done things like cooking schools and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it's something
Yeah.
that's still talking about food, I think works the best.
Our whole deal is you have to be readily able to make a direct connection around the business that you have, food, farming, and health.
Right.
And-
Community.
yeah, and
Right.
and so it's like if you can't quite get that working out, let's not go there. So, and because you can, you can get really sidetracked by just going, oh, we can make all this money and we could do all this stuff, but
But then you start
it's-
diluting your
You
image
lose your
and your
soul.
Yeah, right. And the customers will react to
Yeah.
that. They'll
Yeah.
react badly
Well,
if you clutter it up too
yeah,
much. So
exactly. They
Yeah.
start noticing, and so we only have on our posters and things like that. There's only 2 logos that ever go out. One's the Market Match one, which wasn't a requirement necessarily being a Market Match partner, but I feel really strongly I want people to see that there, and particularly people who might be participating in CalFresh or Market Match. I want to make sure that they know that market is for them.
right.
And then we have, through our local agricultural department, has a local branding program.
Right.
And theirs goes on there, and that's part of our agreement with them. But I'm
Right.
not going to make that agreement
But you
with
don't
anybody
clutter
else.
up
But there
your
isn't.
posters.
Yeah, no, there's no point. It's
Right.
There's no point, and I don't have to. But you're right. Like for every level of sponsorship, we do a number of things to make sure that people feel like they're getting some sort of a return. And so for us in our community, in our particular economy, for $150 a year to have your name on our poster, at least one Facebook thing going out, and we have several thousand followers on all of our different pages.
Yeah, so that can be really valuable.
Yeah, exactly. To be up on our website, where we get a lot of website traffic.
Do you do email newsletters?
We do email newsletters.
That can be really strong.
Everybody
if the
gets
sponsor
one.
gets a mention.
Everybody gets one. And I have a little checkboard by my thingy as I do them, and I just kind of go down the list, and not necessarily in order of like who's given the most, but as soon as I get a check in the mail, it's like, shout out to Pasta Moon.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing, and it wraps the community in. And the other thing we always say is when you get somebody giving you money and kind of doing that partnership with you, you're not only getting money, but you're getting hearts and minds because they're so proud to be aligned with the farmers markets that they may tell their other customers, or at least their aunt and uncle and their cousins, that you should go check out the farmers market. We're part of that.
Yeah.
So that can be really valuable too.
And it really is. And like that's like you were talking before about like who we offer booths to. Like that's one of the huge values of our we call it the Citizen Can sponsorship, where we have organizations that basically they pay the rent for our for a nonprofit booth to be in the market.
Oh, which is awesome.
Month. And it is awesome. It's
because you want to support those nonprofits, but you still got to look at where each piece of that income's coming from.
Exactly. And I never feel good about charging them to be there. That's not been something that personally has ever felt like right to me. But I live in an area where all of the sorts of things that you might expect in a more conventional community, or one that's a little bit more urban than we are, is we don't have our own human service agency offices on the coast. All of them are private-public partnerships, so the programs that help people like their taxes and housing and food assistance, and we have a satellite office for the WIC office that comes out once a month, that kind of thing, right? So
one more way to make the farmers market important to the community.
Yeah, so we have with the Citizen Can sponsorship, we have organizations, and a lot of times it's family foundations in the community that want to do a little bit more than just send you, $50 a year or whatever, but don't necessarily have a business. And we've had a couple of times where it's been businesses or departments from the county, and lately it's been the city of Half Moon Bay, who has to take care with their policies that they're not giving money to any specific. They can't give to any, so they give to none.
Specific cause,
right?
Right.
So, but what they can do with us is
give to the market,
sponsor the nonprofit booth.
Yeah, which
so
is
there's
awesome.
just a little placard that that's just up in the corner of their tent. It's 8x8. And it's just a little thing of the city's logo.
Nice.
That's it. So it's very, very discreet. And so larger community-based, community-serving nonprofits that are mission-aligned with us can sign up to man that booth for the day.
Right.
And we don't have a big market, right? And our space is really physically limited.
How many booths do you have?
It's about 45.
Okay.
So it's a good medium-sized, solid medium-sized market. But it is physically constrained by the size of the parking lot, where the roads are. Highway 1 is it's one of our frontage streets.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's not like we can just like move another block over. They are both the markets are like that. They're both physically constrained. But you have all these requirements when you're running a market to separate your ag from your non-ag, or separate your beehives, your honey people from your beeswax people, or your, people with
all the usual ag things.
Yeah, all the usual stuff, and the health department stuff around like keeping folks with prepared food, apart from this guy, or like supplying shade for people who really kind of need it. Or in our case, there's a physical. There's a big giant hole in this one spot that people always want to walk to cut through a section. So that's where our community event table goes, or sometimes that's where our community booth goes.
Nice.
That space is
Cover
full.
That hole.
We don't have a whole bunch of people like walking through a space or going behind vendors' booths. So we use that table because it's absolutely up to us where we put it in the market every day. It's just that it's up there in the market every day. And so you have everybody from, surf riders in there to our Sonrisas, which is our community dental clinic. And I'm trying to think like the Rotary and bunches of other folks who come and do their thing there. and wouldn't otherwise have the capacity or the desire to spend $100 to come out to your market for the day
Right.
and do
Right,
community
yeah.
outreach and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so being aligned with the market without actually having to have a presence is an important thing for a lot of supporters. So one more thing. Yeah, and hi, we're, like we said, we're recording live from the California Small Farm Conference, so we may have friends.
Yay! This is Jen. She's another farmer too.
Yay, hi. So one other thing before we wrap up for our listeners, they're always curious about how do you start that conversation with supporters. So do you send out an email to potential supporters? Do you go visit them? Do you have a newsletter that goes to supporters? Do you run an ad that says, please support the market? How do you get these conversations started?
So we started ours. Now it's really easy because we have retained our sponsors forever.
Oh, that's awesome. So people come looking for you.
We right now have people come looking for us,
That's
which is
great.
a lovely place to be. But it's important to note that we're a pretty mature
Right.
market, and we've been doing what we've been doing for a while. But it started by just asking friends, like people that when we had a. I know you know about it. We had to move our market within 28 days. So I came out of City Hall crying, ran into a woman who was a market lady wanting to know, was one of our shoppers, wanted to know what the problem was. And I told her, and she said, well, how much is that going to cost? And I said, it's probably going to cost $2,500 that I don't have.
Right.
Just to do the posters
Sure.
again and to do the outreach we need to do to tell people that this is all changing. And she said, well, I don't have $2,000, but I have $20. Let me give that. She goes, and I bet you know some people who have $20. So it started with an email to, and that would be my one strong advice to just about everybody, is to get a really strong, solid email list.
Absolutely.
And do it in whatever way you need to. And it's something that lately, I have to admit, I've been a little bit lazy about, and I need to kind of pick that back up.
Yeah, that's really the very most valuable thing. We always say, social media is great, but you're building your house on somebody else's land. With Facebook and Instagram, they can change the rules when they want to.
Yeah.
Whereas an email list, you own that relationship, that connection, that access to that shopper or friend. So your base level sponsorship is the Friend of the Market
is the Friends
program,
of Farmers
right?
Market, and that's for just individuals in the community that want to chip me $20 to put in whatever bucket I needed to. In the initial case, it was to make sure that I had the money that I needed to move a market.
And do most of those people renew each year?
Yeah, we have about an 85% retention rate.
And about how many friends do you have?
Right now, about 220.
Oh, that's great. So that's generating a good, solid little chunk that you can use
it's a nice little
for
chunk of change.
staffing and equipment and insurance and all those things
Yeah.
that we have to do.
Yeah, so it sort of moved from there because we just put out this note, yikes, got to move the market. Please help us in these 3 ways. Tell everybody you know. If you have friends that go to the market that, are that would care about this, please let them know. It's going to cost me a bunch of money that I don't have. City's waiving everything, but it's not going to waive the cost of production of this, that, and the other thing, and redoing our road signs and whatnot. And within 24 hours, I had 125 plus people sending me $20 or pledging $20, and they were running it down to City Hall and into the coffee shop where I go and sending me checks in the mail. And it was kind of insane. It was amazing, and they just kept coming.
That's great.
That the whole year. And then we sort of made that a little bit more formal in the following year and started making totes with our logo. And so anybody who was a Friends of Farmers Market could get one of our totes and a little sticker
PBS
for their
tote,
car.
right?
Like a PBS tote. And the thing that we've always done with our totes is that nobody else gets them. They're not for sale.
That
They're not just
exclusive
like
thing is-
whatever.
yeah.
Because we didn't have that many to make, and I only made them the first time for the people who were like doing a little investment in the Friends program.
Right.
And so I still keep those kind of close to the chest, which has turned out to be a kind of a good thing.
Well, exclusivity is attractive.
But a lot of those friends were also people in the community who owned small businesses. And they're like, well, we could do more, like, what do you think about this, that, or the other thing? And it just made us start thinking about, like, how we could work with businesses as well. And I didn't want to get into a situation where I was needing to do donations and have that money be restricted, but the way grant monies are.
Right.
Because unrestricted funds, that is
the best.
That is the
That's
golden
the goal.
ring, man. And because as the markets have evolved, I mean, it just as time has gone by, the cost of production continues to increase.
Absolutely.
If you're doing your job right and you're being a reasonable boss, people like working for you and they want to, so you need to give a raise. They want to stay, and you got to keep it in mind that people have everybody's got to live, and we have to
Right.
live well. We can't be just like throwing a party for 2,000 people or so twice a week just for.
We're professionals, and we need to remember that we're professionals and get a reasonable rate for
so
our work.
making sure that, like, with all the levels that we have, I just really try to make sure that everyone sees a benefit to their business for that association, that it's not just a donation that makes them feel good and they pat me on the head and walk away, and that it's not tithing.
Right.
That it's advertising, it's marketing for them, and that there's a benefit to them and their business that's obvious and transparent, and clear, and doesn't clutter us, doesn't co-opt our market, doesn't co-opt our brand.
So smart. Doing such good things and helping other people do good things. Thank you so much for taking the time at the conference to talk to us. And it's great talking to you.
Great to talk to you too,
glad
Kat.
we caught you.
Yeah, me too.
All
Me
right,
too.
next time.
Thanks a million.
To hear what's happening in various parts of the country or share what's happening in your area, we have terrific conversations and people sharing resources over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. Feel free to come on over, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join that group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us how you're enjoying Tent Talk. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next episode. This podcast is produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thanks for listening.